And more to the gas questions. We have today in our studio Svitlana Romanko, founder of the Razom We Stand NGO. Greetings, Svitlana.
Greetings. Thank you so much for having me here.
It's a pleasure to see you in our studio because last time we had your deputy head talking about gas again with us. And today we would like to discuss the end of an era, the end of Russian gas in Europe, with January 1st stopping all the transit to European nations. What are the implications? What is the significance of this event, underscored by some media, but real significance of this to our European politics?
Yes, this event, in particular, ending the gas transits through Ukrainian territory was long anticipated since 2019, when this gas contract has been concluded between Ukraine and Russia. And now we celebrate this stop of gas transit because it has huge symbolic, emotional, and also security meaning for not just for Ukraine, but also for Europe. And speaking about implications, many experts, me included, can't see any of them because Europe is well prepared, including 32 cubic meters, billions of gas in Ukrainian storages right now. They are well prepared. Ukraine will lose some cost for transportation, which were not that significant. The most countries affected will be Russia itself and also Moldova, which we can speak more.
Yes, and before we go to Moldova, we are to talk about Robert Fico, the mouthpiece, the rupert of Kremlin gas interests in Europe right now. Even Viktor Orban, a long-standing, like Russia supporter of Russian energy in Europe, is not so sincere about supporting gas imports from Russia, and we see a direct conflict between Ukraine and Slovakia. The leaderships of these countries in the media sphere, on Twitter, President Zelensky and Prime Minister Fico are exchanging some debates. Yes, and why is the interest of Robert Fico, his maybe personal one, in continuing gas transit?
Not just personal, it's a very also domestic political concern for Slovakia because they did barely nothing to diversify their gas supply from Russian, which was the cheapest. Transportation through the pipelines through Ukrainian territory was the cheapest one, as we already know. And Slovakia currently 50% dependent on Russian gas because it makes 20% of its energy mix even now. So they will lose 10%. They will lose a huge amount of gas, and they won't be able to replace it with other sources because they didn't make a second thought and they didn't make a plan B. What happens if Ukraine stops gas transit through the pipeline, which is the only one left since Soviet times? As we know, it's been 40 years since Russia first started this gas route through Ukraine, and Ukraine mostly spends those money for service and for maintaining the gas supply, gas network and gas pipeline in a good technical condition. So we are a very reliable partner to the European Union, and Fico has nothing to do as agree with European politics and policies. Of course, he is complaining. We can see him complaining to many media and speaking openly that the price will go up, the industry will collapse. He had 2.5 years basically to think about that and make another plan, and not to be a final destination point for Russian WAG gas transit through Ukraine, which we all knew will have to be ended, and Russia will be cut of 6 billion, approximately 6 billion. We can see different assessments starting from 4.5 billion up to 6.5 billion that Russia used to make on the gas transit through the pipeline through Ukraine, which is now stopped. So they will bear huge financial losses, along with Slovakia, as we know, who is also Russian big supporter in the European Union.
And if we consider that some political inner reasons for Slovakia influence the decisions of the government and their position, then how this stripping Europe of Russian gas, of this Russian gas needle, how it will change the future of Europe, because we heard many times that Europe is dependent on Russia. Europe cannot go without Russia. Europe will freeze their propaganda narratives. And here we have no gas from Russia to Europe, and everyone is fine for now. How will this change the future of Europe?
This has already changed the future of Europe because before the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, European Union used to consume about 300 billions of cubic meters of Russian gas. For now, they only which was 40% of their energy supply. Now they left just a not significant amount, which is still coming from Russia, which makes 8% of their energy mix. But I have to point on important facts that Europe has already increased the LNG exports from Russia. This is the same liquefied gas, which is much more expensive because it needs to be frozen to the minus 60 degrees Celsius and then transported with the huge ice-breaking tankers, and which Russia has currently feel a lack of, and also with the sanctions which were currently imposed in November of the past year, I will have to say, and continued through 2023 from the US. We can see that Russia has completely lost access to the European market now, but just maintains a share of LNG that we hope will be cut, and the EU will impose the full ban on Russian LNG in the next 6 months. We work with that with our diplomatic institutions and our council, with the presidential office of many organizations, and also with our international partners and Polish delegation to the EU, which we know currently stepped into the chairing the European Council. So we expect and we call on Europe to go further to really sustain their energy security and fully end the consumption of Russian gas in a liquefied form, or so-called liquefied natural gas.
Well, that's good news to hear. And returning to some non-EU countries that were not prepared to it, Moldova has some stockpiles of gas up to the end of March, I believe. They've made some reserves. And Transnistria, the Russian-occupied region, it has no power, no heating, no gas supply since January 1st. So why is that? Why the region doesn't have any gas supplies of its own? And maybe it's a kind of lever from the Chisinau administration in Moldova to drive them back into the country's energy system.
There are different reasons for Russia of doing that, of cutting the supply to Moldova starting from January 1st, because that was Russia who cut the supply, and Moldovians basically woke up to the cold houses and lack of gas, and they even had to declare a 60-day state of emergency because they simply cannot diversify and they can't replace Russian gas for a moment with any other gas. So they will have to cut by 1/3 the overall consumption of their gas, and they will just basically have to save and suffer through the cold winter, which is not good for, of course, for Moldovan citizens. And we know that the region of Pridnestrovia is really out of law. One of the reasons why Russia said they did that was that Moldova has a huge debt to pay Russia for the already consumed Russian gas, which we don't know if it's fully true or not, because not everyone, we couldn't see their contract. We didn't know the details, of course, but we suspect it might be right. But it's not a news that Russia has been using the gas supply to Europe, including to Moldova. They are not a part of the European Union. They are not a member, but they started their way to becoming a member. And actually, what the main thing that they said publicly, the government, including Prime Minister, was that Russia using a gas supply as a geopolitical weapons. As we know, it's not a news about Russia because they bombard our energy infrastructure and they try to turn the same weapons, gas, into the weapons against the European Union and against Ukraine, of course. But I am very proud as Ukrainian, as a climate activists and the public civil activists, that our president and our government and Naftogaz has made a range of steps and completely cut the gas transit, because it's a huge meaning. It's historical day, which, by the way, it won't severely affect the geopolitics and politics. So we don't expect the major shifts. We just expect the bold action of the EU, who got themselves prepared, in spite that Europe is paying 4 times more for gas overall, which makes them less competitive in comparison to China and the US. But European Union is showing up as a really strong leader in reducing Russian gas, and we hope they will continue this policy in the next year, and we will completely cut Russia's war machine of the gas and oil funds. But one thing to remind as well for us as for Ukrainians, that the next step, very important step, is cutting the oil supply through the Druzhba pipeline, which is still happening. It's the next thing to look into because the oil profits used to exceed the gas profits for Russia totally. And there is another way that Ukraine can show up as a strong leader, even in spite of the third year of full-scale Russian aggression.
So this is very reminiscent of the times of Yanukovych, when Russia used a gas debt to blackmail Ukraine, basically, and trick us into some kind of agreements that were followed by aggression in 2014. And you say about the Druzhba pipeline that is transferring oil. Maybe the main country that is receiving it is Hungary, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of oil that is being sold to European countries right now, still from Russian territory.
Unfortunately, there is refined oil. There is also refined oil products that still flow to the EU. So we know that EU has imposed the oil ban in the beginning of the full-scale Russian invasion, but it only became effective at the end of 2022, and later on we can't see that the all-effective cut of the use of oil products and oil fuel products, as well heavy oil fuel products, has been significantly cut across the European Union. And the main case here is, of course, supply via the Druzhba branch of the pipeline, but also this is a shadow fleet that we just witnessed a huge disaster in Kerch Strait just a few days ago, a week ago. And we know that this is so enormously important, not just for cutting Russian profits, but also deactivating Russian threat to the environment and to the environment of Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Let us hope that European energy security will be independent of such players as Russia, because it's a strategic goal to get rid of those dependencies. And in the future, we will join the gas and oil production, maybe some green production of energy in the future in the European Union. Thank you very much, Ms.
Yeah, just one last important point, that our future is a transition to renewable energy. We can't rely on oil and gas, because we've just been seeing that they've been turned into the geopolitical weapons. So decarbonize, step down of using oil and gas is our joint future, Ukraine and Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Romanko, for having us in the studio, for talking to us, and for the interview too. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. You too.
Well, that is all for today. Thank you for being with us. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button down below to help us continue delivering the news of the free world directly from Ukraine to you. It was Pavlo Shtelемach on UTV in the first wrap-up episode of the year 2025. Stay safe and don't let propaganda win.